Escape to the metaverse. Better act like you know. Yeah. You are now tuned into the Matthew and Rizzle show. Yeah. Escape to the metaverse. Better act like you know. Yeah. You are now tuned into the Matthew and Rizzle show. Yeah. Escape to the metaverse. Better act like you know. You are now tuned into the Matthew and Rizzle show. Yeah. Escape to the metaverse. Better act like you know. You are now tuned into the Matthew and Rizzle show. Yeah.
I brought tea.
Thank you, Robot Lady. What's up, everyone? It's Matthew, and joined, as always, forever now, with my partner in crime, Rizzle. What up, dude?
What's up, dude? We uncorked one last week, man. I feel like the rant, I don't know, struck a chord with some people, and we owe some follow up ranting or whatever. But it's good, man. It's been fun recording these podcasts. I know we've said that for a couple weeks now, but it's also fun to hear other people sort of validate that they missed some of these conversations as well. So. And I know we were talking right before this that you've been having a lot of these kinds of conversations with these people. You're down at NFT Summit.
Yeah, exactly. Non-NFT Summit, to be clear, dude. Like, this is very not one of those other NFT conferences. But yeah, before diving into that, just big shout out to everyone that retweeted, reshared, posted tweets about the podcast last week. Love to see that. And big shout out to Conlon from Async Art for writing like a 39 tweet storm inspired by it. It was love to see it, honestly. But yeah, down here in Mexico City at the Non-NFT Summit that Neurocolor and Moxarra put on, and it's been amazing. The response from like the artists and collectors and folks that have been around in the space for a while that were invited as speakers was just incredible. The turnout was great, but the location was like, I don't even know how to describe it. Just old historic center of Mexico City, these big ass brick walls that it just go sky high. And in the middle of that, just a whole bunch of like fucking crypto artists and gallery spaces and a stage and people talking real shit. There was none of this filler, none of this corporatese. People, for example, the panel that I had with Colborn and Nicole from Vertical Crypto Art that Vinny from Super Rare moderated got a little spicy. Yeah, we had some real chat. Like Colborn has a real specific point of view on the space and what curation means and how it's separate from collectors. And I have a very different opinion, and it got a little spicy. People are like, "Oh shit, are you two okay?" We hugged it out afterwards. It's all love. It's all good there, but it's definitely a glimpse into, I think, and you're putting together a meetup of your own for next year, a gathering, I should say, not a meetup, in real life, that I think is right along the same vein that Neurocolor and Moxarra mined here. We're just having a very focused, tight-knit group of people coming together makes magic. The here was one afternoon, all the 5 or 6 different panels put together, and then a sick conference or a concert afterwards. Rare Skrilla had a set, and then Six File, an epic band out of LA, played, and then another act popped up, and I had to leave with Basilius and WG Meets and Pindar and a bunch of other folks. We were getting too tired by then, old man status, but it was perfect, man. Repeatable, and love to see the virus spread.
Yeah. It sounds awesome, man. I mean, I feel like, a lot of people are sort of tapping into the same thing, especially since last NFT NYC. You see all the empty seats at NFT London, and you got the non-NFT Summit going on that, a lot of people turned out for. And that was sort of the thought behind trying to do this Rizzlefest, is sort of like a retreat type of thing that I found myself going to these things, not even to go to these things, just to hang out with people and everything. And so we got a bunch of people to sign up already, man. If people are listening to this, it's going to be April 20th in Tennessee, 20th to the 23rd. I got a sort of a not so secret pre-sale sign up sheet going on. If people are listening and want to get on it, you can slide into my DMs and get the pre-sale rate or whatever. But the point isn't to make money. You know what I mean? We're trying to put this thing together to cover our costs and get people together to do things. Cause, I don't know, man, probably for the same reason you went down to Mexico City. I'm like, the idea of like hanging out with a bunch of people in Web3 doing something different than we normally do is extremely appealing to me. Like, NFT NYC is going to come up again. And I'm like, I should go because it's a tremendous networking opportunity and it's sort of like a central hub and lots of people are going to be there. But at the same time, I'm like, how many times can you sort of like have been there, done that with these things which are like the exact same format every time? And we're in a space full of creatives that, you know what I mean? I feel like want different experiences and want to be inspired by different things, as well as each other. So it's, we've been sort of planning Rizzlefest for, almost 6 months now, just sort of pulling the larger details together and everything. But in the meantime, these other events have popped up, and then NFT London happened, and all of that sort of makes me feel like this is like a step in the right direction, or like something that is desirable to people. And at the end of the day, if it only ends up being like 25 people just like chilling at this camp and hanging out and shooting, Web3 ideas around and hanging out, I honestly, that is very appealing to me, as well. But we're going to cap it at like 200 tickets or so and just sort of see what happens. So it's cool, man. It's cool. I've been seeing these pictures, not only Mexico City, there was that one in Barcelona. I think it was in Barcelona as well. That seemed like everybody turned out for, and I'm like,
NFT Fest.
Yeah, man.
Put that on. Yeah, that's like a 1-2 punch, like juxtaposed against NFT London. Everyone that came from HNFT down here to Mexico City was raving about that. And for as amazing as that was, the people that attended here as well, they're like, this is, they leveled it up back to back. Like Stella Bell was like, her mind was blown, dude.
Yeah,
Stella awesome. Bell person. She's like, I just went to the 2 best conferences maybe ever back to back. It was funny to see, but yeah,
it's so great.
You're going in the right direction. I'm so stoked for Tennessee next year. I've never been to Tennessee too, so that's a fun little
Me either.
And it was cool to see, like, remember when we went to the first NFT NYC and we like all these weird random sponsors that like no one had ever fucking heard of, like in the space. This time we see like Bright Moments sponsoring it. Basilius was a sponsor, and the name that really stood out to me after how we finished the podcast last week was KnownOrigin as a sponsor.
Yeah, that's an interesting one.
Yeah.
So, dude, I got a lot of like feedback, interested to hear like, where this conversation with KnownOrigin is going to go. And I'm genuinely still, and I told people, I was like, I legit told Matt not to tell me what he thinks because I want to, sort of hash it out, and hear what you're talking about live. Dude, I don't, it's funny that you were sort of like going back and forth with Colbert, man. I would imagine that my sentiments on this situation and in general sort of tend to align with Colburn. So I'm wondering if like this is a situation where we have overlapping ideas or whatever as well. But I know this Stella Bell was up in my DMs as well, sort of asking what my thoughts were or where we were taking this conversation and everything, as well as a lot of people, man. It's like we're saying in the beginning of the podcast, like it's cool. It's cool, man. I feel like we're, sort of engaging in real time with like the OG community with like relevant talking points and everything. And it feels good, man. So dude, I would love to hear your thoughts, man. I sort of left everybody with, a pretty like blatant picture of where I generally stand on the KnownOrigin eBay acquisition, which I'm like happy to rehash, but, maybe it makes more sense for you to, I don't know. Tell me what you think, man. I don't want to say that you were in favor of the acquisition, although maybe you were, but would love to hear your thoughts on it generally. I am very much against it. I'm on public record. But I'm open to conversation and respect your opinion and would like to, genuinely hear what your take is on it. I believe Art Gnome was mentioned as also being sort of in the other camp in terms of I don't want to say like necessarily pro acquisition, but not necessarily being against it. And he's another person who I have a lot of respect for within the space. So would love to hear your take, man.
Yeah, I mean, my takes are never as exciting or spicy as your takes. So if people are coming in thinking that I'm going to be like spitting fire, like they're just going to have their hopes dashed, basically. But honestly,
I mean, dude, I feel like taking that stance is sort of spicy in itself, man. I would, dare I say, like sort of an unpopular opinion within the space. And usually I feel like I'm on that side of things. So yeah, man. So let's hear it.
No, for sure. I mean, obviously the majority opinion from almost everyone is like, fuck KO. They sold us out. Like we're not minting there anymore. Like death to KO. All that jazz, right? It's pretty unanimous. And it's really understandable too, right? When I first heard about the $45 million acquisition, it was, it was with Sats Monsoon in a Soho house one evening, in New York City. And he was an investor in KnownOrigin, so he had the information early. I couldn't talk about it at the time, but when eBay made their, they released their financial statement, the mid part of the year, they indicated how much they had spent on the KnownOrigin acquisition. So like we can actually talk about it now. When I heard that, I was like, holy shit, that's, in my mind, more than I was expecting, given that like KnownOrigin had never truly popped off. Like there's always been like steady sales, but obviously like the big marketplaces have been super rare, Nifty Gateway. So I was like, in my mind, I was like, damn, that's a nice little exit for those founders who put in years and years and years into the space. And like one of the co-founders, James Morgan, co-authored the ERC 721 standard and recently helped co-author the ERC 2981 royalty standard too, right? Like they've literally helped write history on the blockchain when it comes to NFTs and marketplaces and stuff like that. But then when Sats told me who the acquiring party was, I was like, oh, that's not going to go over well. When he told me that it was eBay, I was like I immediately could anticipate the tweet shitstorm that would erupt from there just because of the associations and like eBay of all people coming in, super corporate. And of course, it was proven true. And folks like Mighty Moose were up in arms, understandably, right? And the reason why is just people have different assumptions and expectations about a lot of platforms, especially in this space. Rightly so. We're trying to build a decentralized future that's been different than the past, that doesn't rely on like the old norms and standards and laws and regulations and stuff like that. But with projects where the co-founders are very public figures and like have registered legal entities in their countries, like there's a different way that they need to run things, right? So that they can continue to provide a service for folks to use. And especially when it came to like things like banning artists from minting on the platform, from that were using IP addresses from Iran, like obviously people are pissed off about that because it's not helping anything out. And it's a really antiquated way of dealing with problems that governments have with other governments, right? To punish the regular people. But it's like from a business practical standpoint, there's really not a lot that companies can do outside of one, complying, and then two, trying to figure out ways around that issue, right? So I'm always a little bit more tempered in those sorts of like hot button issues in this space in particular. And then when it comes to the acquisition, like in my mind, I'd always been wondering about like the financial health of KnownOrigin. Like I collect there, but never like big purchases, like biggest purchase like $15,000 or something like that for a Sky Gold Pay piece. But like their volumes haven't been great. And I'm fairly confident that the co-founders are all like independently crypto wealthy, right? But they have put so much time and effort into building KO. I can only imagine how short the runway potentially could have been, right? So in my mind, as soon as I heard about the acquisition, like I immediately thought of the counterfactual. Like what if they didn't go through with the acquisition and just ran out of that runway, right? Like what if the second most historically important marketplace, KnownOrigin, folded, shut up shop, just like Additional did, right? Losing all that art potentially, like turning off the servers that hosted the images and stuff like that. Like that, if that happened, like that would be a death shot to the space. No one would benefit from that. It would hurt everyone materially. So playing out that counterfactual, like I understand the actual decision to make the choice to sell the company and to have that healthy exit and to hopefully be able to build within that new corporate structure. And like it's very vague, the statements that KnownOrigin have put out, like, but to build better services for more people, which gets me to part two of like the faulty expectations and assumptions. Like if people have been tracking the KnownOrigin team in particular, they've never been great communicators. And they've always been, even though they put out a very solid technical project and product, they're super slow in any kind of update and very sketchy on when it's happening. And it always seems quite late when they did anything. Not dissimilar to like a Ben Nolan, right? Who's not the best communicator and makes decisions that are not always like the best. But like that's the track record of the KO co-founders, for better or worse. No value judgment there. Like people are who they are. They have strengths and weaknesses, right? But I think a lot of people were just expecting them to be better communicators. And it's like, if you looked at the track record, there's no reason to expect something like that from this team. So the outsized anger, like that to me is just like, there's that disconnect because you were expecting something that obviously has never been like a core part of that team. So for those reasons, I understand the upset feelings and butthurtness for sure, but I also appreciate the decision of the co-founders to know themselves and to make a decision that hopefully long run will help benefit the space more than hurt it. So that's sort of where I'm at, if that makes sense.
It makes sense, man. I feel like the part that like really, the part where they really lost me is I felt like it was sort of a LARP, like, and in the similar way that like OpenSea felt like sort of a LARP where they, and essentially like preyed on people with decentralized ideals to build their platform and then pulled like an okie doke when they're like, oh, by the way, we were only as decentralized as we could be to get to this point, but just kidding. Now we have to like become centralized in order to scale. And I'm like, that should not like be something that we accept around here. Like sort of going back to what you were saying in the beginning, like the point in theory, at least in my head, and as I'm finding like less and less people's heads, as time goes on, but I'm like, in theory, the point is to build something better and to create a path forward that gets us past all of these historically problematic, like old world companies and organizations that really just exploit creators and everything. And I'm like, KnownOrigin, like co-signing onto like eBay is just the epitome of not that. You know what I mean? It isn't even like they took on investors that like, I don't know, they had to take on some centralized investors and make some like centralized changes. But I'm like, dude, eBay is just like so far in like the worst direction, like humanly possible that like, I feel like the tone deafness to have been built up by like an indie artist crowd that is so anti-corporate, anti-consumer to then sell out to the most corporate, like most anti-creator, types of organizations out there. I'm like the hypocrisy just feels like it's so deep and like the disconnect is like so rampant. And I'm like, dude, I feel like, again, these are all smart people from KnownOrigin and we've done things with them in the past and I've like historically had like, good relationships with them and Edgar hit me up like asking for my like real take on this situation or Edward, I'm sorry. And I, let him know what I think. And he was, polite and responsive and, said he appreciated hearing my opinion. And so, I'm not, again, trying to make this like necessarily personal against them. But I'm like, dude, you step into this territory with this ethos and your company doesn't work out. Like, you commit seppuku at that point, man. You stab yourself in the chest with honor and you die an honorable death, and you hit up Art Gnome to make sure the NFTs that are on your platform are preserved for entirety, and you gracefully bow out, but retaining the respect of the community so that you can then come back and re-enter with like some other thing. But I'm like, dude,
dude, can I quibble? Can I quibble?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Let me quibble. Well, first of all, like shout out
quibble.
Art Club NFT, like doing the Lord's work in the space, backing up all the NFTs. The quibble. So the ethos that you're talking about of like anti-corporate, all that, like that's the ethos of where we came from for sure. But
KnownOrigin was there with us.
Yeah, for
I'm
sure,
not saying that everyone has to have that ethos.
But over time, like the space has grown and changed. And if 2021 like it is remembered for anything, it should be remembered for like how it expanded and more people came into the space, more entities, like for better or worse, from all walks of life. From the corporate side of things, from the celebrity side of things, to like the average like mom and dads and kids and everything from around the world coming in and collecting, right? And that ethos of like everyone more or less being anti-corporate, anti-establishment, like the old school kind of like cypherpunk vibes or whatever. I don't think we can say that that's still 100% the ethos of the space today. And because of that, building for the future, having again, say what you will about eBay, and there's a lot of shit to talk about it, and like I fucking don't use it, like to be straight up, but it is a big global digital marketplace that people have bought and sold billions of dollars worth of like shit on, right? And if they want to make that effort to somehow, some way incorporate digital art, again, I don't know how it works in their product, but for the fact that for the time being, letting the KO be its own autonomous thing that's distinctly separate from eBay, like that gives me a little bit of solace that they're not going to come in and like totally fuck shit up, right? So like that's sort of where I'm at. I hope that quibble was okay.
No, quibble's okay, man. I appreciate your thoughts. So, dude, but I feel like still like I feel like chalking KnownOrigin's decision up to just like evolving with the space is sort of like letting them off the hook easy, man, because their whole position within the space was being an advocate and being like alongside of that sort of like old mentality, that old ethos, the like cyberpunk thing. And I feel like it would be different if it was a different platform and they didn't sort of present themselves in that way. And I feel like I would feel like different about it. And like Nifty Gateway, for example, like not saying anything bad at all, they sort of toe the line between like the Web 2 world and the Web 3 world, and have done so really well. And if they were to take on a large amount of funding from like a major corporation like eBay, for example, I don't think anyone would blink or like care too much, and not even in a bad way. I just feel like they're a platform who has sort of entered the space with a different ethos and is therefore held to a slightly different standard than a KnownOrigin who has, sort of those grimy roots in like the really early community and had the support of the really early community. And I think a lot of that community maybe just wrongfully assumed, and maybe I'm, lumped into this category, man, that, sort of wrongfully assumed that they were going to continue to look out for the people who built their platform up. But I feel like it's very similar to the OpenSea situation, man. And it came in on like, sort of after everyone already had like a bad taste in their mouth from OpenSea almost doing the same thing. There's tweets of them saying like, we're, a decentralized platform and we'll never ban anybody from like any countries and like blah, 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 blah. So I feel like, half of the battle is like messaging, like you're saying, and like poor communication. Like they, sort of presented as one thing and did another. And I feel like more than the eBay acquisition, that was the crux of the situation. Remember when like Maker's Place started like just allowing collectibles on their marketplace instead of just art, and all of a sudden like all the PFP collections were on Maker's Place, and I'm like, I just felt like, you know what, they gave up now, and they're just like throwing shit at the wall, and that's what it sort of feels like with NownOrigin. It's just like they got into a corner, they didn't know what to do, so they just sold it to eBay, and I'm like, that sucks.
I mean, again, they've been building for years and years, right? Like they're going on like probably almost the 5th year, right? And to get to that point and potentially be faced with like just like folding or shutting up shop. Like again, I don't know exactly the inner workings of the team, but I know what I've seen over time, and they're just really slow with decision making and doing any sort of thing. So I really would not have confidence that they would come up with something else at this point. Like I can just imagine how tired they are on top of everything else that I just said. But like the other thing that I think is relevant here is that everyone, artists and collectors who have used NonOrigin up until this point, like if we got nothing in return for the time spent on NonOrigin, making and minting art through NonOrigin, collecting on NonOrigin, then we would probably have more of a right to be really butthurt about this. But the artists who've minted it and sold, like they had sales through NonOrigin because of NonOrigin. Collectors got great access to great art and made, in some cases, some good secondary sales through that art and things like this. So I don't know, man. Like people got money from this. They got paid from it. So to be that angry that then the project that they were deriving this monetary gain and benefit from sold themselves so that they could then have their own monetary benefit. I don't know. It strikes me also as slightly rich, to be honest.
Yeah, but see, I'm one of these artists. I don't make art at all, actually. But in my head, I'm an artist. And honestly, so I can see your point of view, man, right? Like, okay, if I was an artist who made a lot of money on NonOrigin, like, you know, let's not, with, you know, beggars can't be choosers type of thing. But, you know, I feel like had people known that this was NonOrigin's path or potential path in the first place, they would have just minted somewhere else. You know what I mean? There are other options at the time. And I feel like NonOrigin, you know, people were specifically minting there because of their ethos, because, you know, they liked how they got down and everything. So, you know, it's not like they were the only platform out there then that people could have possibly done anything on. You know, there was a few options, but
there was literally only a few options though. Like it was there, like Maker's Place, like LOL. Like they had just shoddy support for so long for everyone that was doing anything there. So it's just like, that's in my mind, not the best or strongest option. Although like, again, artists have and continue to mint there, and like the art speaks for itself, but still the platform itself, not the best. And like Super was never an option because the one of ones, like, unless that's what they wanted to do, but limited editions, man, is KO or not really any other option. Like, what do you use?
Rarible or something.
Smart contract to mint, or like Rarible after the boom. People did, but like totally different, man.
Yeah. I don't. It'd be interesting, man. I would love to sort of take an informal poll. Like if people, you know, could rewind time and know that this was the eventual outcome, would they have still minted on NonOrigin? Like, were there other options like that they felt were comparable at the time? And I don't mint much of anything, so I don't know the answer to that. But yeah, the options were significantly limited at the time. I don't know, man. I mean, you know, for all the people who were up in arms and everything, you know, over the situation when it happened, I, you know, tend to feel the same as I've always felt, in that no matter how pissed people are about anything, the space has a very short attention span and a very short memory. And I still see people minting on NonOrigin, and there's dope art like popping up there. And, you know, and to your point about there just not being a lot of places out there, you know, there still aren't, you know, in terms of art marketplaces. And if you like to collect art and if you like certain artists, you know, there's a chance that you're going to have to suck it up and buy one of their pieces on KnownOrigin if that's, where they're minting at. There's, still just not a whole lot of stuff. I'm a big fan of Manifold, and I've been trying to support a lot of these independent like Manifold drops that have been coming out and everything, because I really just feel like on top of like the royalty conversation that's happening as well, like, you've been in crypto for a long time before NFTs as well. And I feel like the mantra was always like in crypto, like basically like never trust any of these exchanges, like never leave your money on them, never trust any of these marketplaces. And we sort of like got away from that with the advent of NFTs and the influx of artists and royalties and being dependent on platforms for royalties. But now I feel like sort of that old like crypto mantra of like never trust any of these motherfuckers is like starting to rear its head. And maybe rightfully so, man. That was like, it was like save your private keys, never trust an exchange. Like, first rule number 1 or 2 and 2 for a while.
Yeah. I mean, I think the crypto adage of like, don't trust, verify is really salient more than anything, right? FTX was not a U.S. domiciled company, right? Like the Alameda and the larger organization, right? They're like a Bahama-based company. So even if they say that they had like a 1-to-1 reserve, a full reserve, like there's nothing that they need to do to prove that. And obviously it's come to light that they abused everyone's trust versus Coinbase, based in California, and then Gemini as another example, based in New York City, highly regulated. They have specific regulatory authorities that they need to provide very specific, very publicly verifiable evidence of their 1-to-1 full reserves. So customers have $100 in crypto, whatever, in their accounts. The US based exchanges need to have $100 on hand to fulfill that. Like, it is not a fucking joke, and it is very onerous in terms of compliance, way more than it probably needs to be, right? But it's something that they've spent years and years complying with, building up their projects and platforms and marketplaces. It's not super sexy. It didn't allow them, but in Gemini's case in particular, to be super nimble, like an upstart like FTX was, right? But it has allowed them to remain extremely stable and a place that folks can trust, right? Not saying everyone needs to trust exchanges. As you know, dude, I'm very, very for the self-custodial wallet. Like, own your shit, not your keys, not your crypto, 100%. But for people that do want to go in between like the metaverse and the real world, having these exchanges that they can actually trust not to fucking implode is really important and will continue to be really important.
Agree, so much as you can like trust them to like execute the transaction. But this is sort of like the problem that I have with like KnownOrigin and like OpenSea and a lot of these exchanges that I've interacted with over the course of the past 10 years is that, they change the rules on you as they see fit, and then you're just sort of stuck with that or got to eat it. And, in a lot of similar ways to like how the banks function. And I feel like, historically in the NFT scene, a lot of these platforms have very, very much been like, community oriented, user friendly, that kind of thing. But at the end of the day, to your point about like the stiff regulations and everything in New York, man, I remember when that shit went down in like the Poloniex troll box, when like, all of a sudden everyone was like, guess what? We're not going to be able to do anything in New York at all anymore because of like all these regulations and everything. It was just, it was nuts to see. You could tell that was like the beginning of like some of that, Wild West getting like stomped out. And it has been, man. And so that's the fear that I run in with, like, the reason, maybe not 100%, but the reason, part of the reason KnownOrigin had to make some of these decisions is because of centralization, and they're being told what to do by an overarching body, and they're handcuffed or feel like they're handcuffed. And now we all got to eat the ramifications of those decisions. Similarly to OpenSea, similarly to like if New York switches things up on Gemini, Gemini has to, bow down to whatever they, say is the new law. And then whoever's got their stuff tied up in Gemini just has to eat it. Not to say that they're super risky or any riskier than anything else that's going on out there, but I'm like, once we get into these situations where like you're putting your trust in these exchanges that aren't here for you, they're here to play by other people's rules and make money. It just, muddles the whole situation significantly. And honestly, man, the more we get into this conversation, the more I'm sort of like annoyed with myself for like really, buying into this like community focused marketplace exchange thing in the first place. Cause I'm like, dude, I've been in crypto forever, man. I should know better. I've seen that shit like a million times, where they come in and act all like, community oriented and friendly until the big investor comes in, or they got to flip the switch, or like, some asshole runs off with a bag of money or some shit like that.
Dude, I mean, it's all levels of like risk evaluation, right? Like how much risk are you willing to take on by using a centralized exchange, right? Again, like we do have the options to self-custody ourselves, to take advantage of like Gnosis Safe and like a super secure multi-sig approach, keep shit on ledgers in cold storage, right? Like we have the tools, and it's just up to everyone's individual situation to decide, like, do they want to keep anything on exchanges? Do they want to even set up an account on exchange today? Like, or is it a future thing where like there may come a time when they need to cash out or something like that? Or are they fully a non, and like, are they only going to keep funds in the metaverse, right? Like they just need to know exactly what their intentions are to go that way. But like to have those on or off ramps, obviously very important. And like on the KnownOrigin part, and like any other team out there in the space that's notable, like we all know who the fuck they were since back in the day, right? And obviously that has its shortcomings and trade-offs. And in the future, like if we really do want truly decentralized platforms, like the future needs to be a non-builders, like straight up, if we want that. And I hope that will come about. And I know it is, like a non-teams are building, but they're not really full body today. It's super rough around the edges, but you got to hope.
Yeah, dude, it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out. I feel like this bull market, or I'm sorry, this bear market has been extremely fascinating to just see who, I don't know. We mentioned it last podcast too, man. I feel like it's amazing to see like who went through the last bear market, who just couldn't get through this one. I feel like this one like really demoralized some people, or like, caused a lot of people to throw in the towel, or felt like their projects like aren't going to make it, or something like that. And so I don't know, man. I wish we got like an extra co-op like for each bear market we've been through or something. Because it's, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just agreeing on the co-op thing, but like, honestly, all of our transactions, like sticking through the bear market is sort of like a co-op itself, just like on chain anyway. Yeah. Fair enough, man.
Yeah, I don't know. It's, the landscape continues to be fascinating. It'll be interesting to see. I don't, I hate playing speculator or whatever, but based on history, man, I don't feel like this bear market is going anywhere anytime soon. I would like to be wrong financially, of course. But part of me is just interested to see like this sort of like slow, prolonged car crash, like bloodbath, shakeout, and see who actually is really left when the dust settles and everything. And it's just starting to seem like it's the same people, man. The same people who are at the summit that you're at, and who are at Barcelona, and who are going to show up at the Whip and come to Rizzlefest and all this shit, with a couple of others we picked up along the way. But I don't know, man. I hope people continue to build in that direction. I feel like that's, Jin has always built in that direction, and it's very difficult, as we both know, once you hit like a certain level of notoriety within the space, to continue to be a non while also being trusted and be able to make like effectual change. But I hope that's not always the case as well, man. I feel like there's value in that, in being a non, and I know you do as well. And one of the reasons why a lot of people are here. So, I don't know, man. I appreciate the conversation, man. I'm not really going anywhere with this particular thought, but I do respect your opinion and, was genuinely curious to hear what you were going to say about KnownOrigin. And, I like those guys, man. It's I maintain my opinion, and that's why it stings, because I do like those guys and have a lot of respect for what they built, and their legacy in the community is like, you can't separate it, right? It's like one of those things. It's like, even if some motherfucker you hate was like around, like back when there was only 10 of us, you still got to give them credit for it. They were there, right?
100%.
So, dude, I don't really have any final thoughts. We're in like some cool ass place for the whip this week that we're still trying to throw together. So we're in like uncharted territory. And then another Fabiano field trip, to get I don't think I showed it to you. He's got another cool wearable with his wife that he cooked up with Patricio. So should be a dope whip this week.
Stoked for it, man.
Cool. Well, dude, appreciate the candor, and we'll stick a pin in it for this one and kick it over to Dragonate. What's up, Dragonate? And we'll see you at the whip tomorrow.
Boom, there we go. What up, Dragonate? Later, bro.
Later, man.
Hi and bye.